I am also the Executive Director of the Morris Park Alliance. And for those in Morris County or with projects in Morris County, hopefully you saw my email that the Don Palmer internship scholarship is open.
Yay. Alexa.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexa Fanicone, the Executive Director of the Teaneck Conservancy.
Thank you. Karen.
I'm Karen Dorfer. I'm the Communications Coordinator for the Musconetcong Watershed Association.
Thank you. Lyle.
Hi, I'm Lyle Landon from the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions.
Nice to see you. Siva, if I'm enunciating your name correctly. My apologies.
Yes, I'm with the Whitney River Watershed Action Committee.
Thank you so much. Karen.
Afternoon, Karen Hollywood from Gettysburg Sculpture in Hamilton, New Jersey.
Thank you. And Brielle.
Hi everyone, Brielle Olshad, Manager of Membership and Administration with the New Jersey Highlands Coalition.
All right, so I'm gonna make an attempt to record this. Hopefully there'll be room, as we oftentimes run out of room on our Zoom for our other educational workshops. Want to introduce Leigh Clark, and she is with the New Jersey State Library. We're super excited to have you on today's New Jersey Environmental Fundraisers Gathering meeting. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. I see some familiar faces, so that's good. I am Leigh Clark. I'm the Business and Funding Information Librarian at the New Jersey State Library. I work within the library's reference department. So I specialize in business and nonprofit related research, but we have like a host of reference librarians at the state library. Most of us are working from home right now, but we are available if you have research questions. You just email us and I'll give you my contact information today. And I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about our Funding Information Center collection and a little bit about the Foundation Directory Online Essential, which is available remotely through FIN locations or funding information locations like the New Jersey State Library. Do you want me to share my screen now, Lauren?
That'd be awesome.
Okay. All right, and I'm going to stop periodically. If you have questions, please let me know. All right, let me see. Okay, can everybody see? It says New Jersey State Library's Funding Information Center.
Perfect.
All right, great. I'm going to share my information at the end and I'll put it in the chat if you'd like. And just look at the New Jersey State Library as a resource. If we can't answer your questions, we will try to direct you to someone who can. So as I said, I'm just going to talk a little bit about our Funding Information Center today, show you some other FIN locations, which you might already be aware of, give you a very brief tutorial of FDO Essential, which is available remotely. If you're familiar with the Foundation Directory Online web database. And then there's a couple extra online resources that I wanted to point you to through the state library and through other organizations. And then of course, if you have questions, please let me know. So just some background information about the Funding Information Center. We primarily, the collection exists primarily to assist individuals and nonprofits finding funding opportunities, mostly grant opportunities using the databases that we have, but other funding opportunities as well. We've been a funding information network member with Candid since 1974, so we're one of the oldest FIN partners in New Jersey. And through that partnership or that membership, we provide free access to their Grantmaker databases. So on-site access would be to the Foundation Directory Online Professional and grants to individuals or grants for individuals. And those are databases for grant makers looking at their past giving trends. So you look at their past giving and try to match your organization's mission to the funder's priorities. Now, we've been closed since March due to COVID restrictions. We are part of the Capitol complex. So we are under the governor and he tells us when we can reopen or not. So we are still closed to the public, though we are open virtually through our different programs and databases and virtual reference assistance. Luckily for us, Candid has allowed FIN partners to provide remote access to FDO Essential. That access has changed recently, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that and what has changed, what's still available. momentarily. We also do have over 1,000 print resources related to nonprofit management and philanthropy. These normally can be requested through your public library, through interlibrary loan. That is not available right now due to COVID-19, but hopefully in the future it can be, and it is used very regularly. We have a lot of the books that you would need for certifications and stuff like that. So they're requested pretty regularly. And then we do have some free virtual classes that we offer, as well as video tutorials, which I'll show you later. We do have a class, a lot of which I'm going to cover today. So I don't know if you're interested. We have a class on Thursday for Foundation Directory Online Essential. I'm teaching it, so just how to use the database and find grant makers that match your organization. So if you have someone else in your organization that might be interested in taking that, it's free. Anybody can register on our website at njstatelib.org/events. And we have a ton of other programming that you might be interested in too. Here we go. We are not the only funding information network location in New Jersey. There are 7 currently in New Jersey that are part of the Fin network with Candid that provide that access to the databases that I mentioned. Each location is different in whether they're open to the public and what additional services they provide, but I encourage you to reach out to the one that's closest to you. In the northern top part of New Jersey, it's a little sparse, but there might be other locations in different states. Like in the northern part of central New Jersey here, there is one in New York, in Suffin, I believe I'm pronouncing that right. So I've included this link at the bottom, candid.org/find-us. So you can just type in your zip code and see what the closest location is to you. And there are some libraries, public libraries, that just subscribe to Foundation Directory Online Professional separately. One of them is the Burlington County Library System. I'm not sure if they still subscribe, but they did as of last year. And then the Toms Rivers branch of the Ocean County Library System also subscribes to Foundation Directory Online Professional, and they provide it on site. A lot of university libraries also have it, so just check out what's available in your area. And of course, you can always access it through the state library until the end of this year remotely. All right, so this is our Funding Information Center webpage. Here you can access our account for FDO Essential. We also have links to our tutorial videos for FDO Essential and our links to our research guides that I manage, and we try to compile information on grants and nonprofit management. So I'll show you those in a little bit. If you remember one thing from today, just remember this link, www.njstatelib.org/funding-info, and I'll put that in the chat when I close my screen. If you click this link, FDO Essential link, it will bring you to this form where you can request access to our New Jersey State Library account. We just request that you give us an email, a first name, and the location or county of your organization, just so that we know where you are and access wise. You can include your last name and your organization's name, but you don't have to. And once you fill that in, you will automatically be sent a link to our funding information, or no, I'm sorry, FDO Essential account. This link right here in the middle, part of it's blurred out just so that not everybody has it who's recording. You do have to request access. If you save that link, you can use it multiple times. You don't have to resubmit multiple forms, but if you do lose it, you can always submit another form, and that will automatically be sent to you again. Now, access to FDO Essential, if you've used it in the past year, has changed as of March 25th. Candid, it's about a year after they launched it, switched FDO Essential to a day pass system now. And what that means is that you can access the database remotely for one 24-hour session. That's a continuous 24-hour session every 30 days. So it's a lot more limited now than it was before in this past year. And that's just a way that they can actually like gather the data of who's using it. It was a mess before. So now that it's more structured, it'll be better, and we can get that data of who's actually using the database and whether it's worth continuing to provide it remotely. With this, you do have to create an account with Candid through the Foundation Directory Online. It's a couple extra steps, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But with this FDO account, you do have access to the My FDO features, which you didn't have access to before. And that allows you to save searches and to tag funders so that you can remember them for later sessions. And I'll show you those features in the demo today. So if you click this link that is emailed to you from the New Jersey State Library, after March 25th, which is now, you will be asked to enter in your email that you want to use within the database. If you don't have an account already, you'll be sent a link to your email just to verify it. And that looks something like this. You just click that link and you'll be asked to register with Candid within the Foundation Directory online system. I think it's your email, your name. They ask for some additional information. And then you agree to their terms. And once you hit that button and you go directly into FDO Essential, and that begins your first 24-hour session. So if you're not ready to start researching, I encourage you not to register until you're ready to start to research. Because that first 24-hour session will start and then you have 24 hours to research. So just keep that in mind. Once you click that button, this is what the landing page looks like. At the top, you'll see a banner with how many hours you have left in your session and when it will expire, the date and time. This is a simple search box, so I'll show you how we're going to search in that today. I'm going to stop here. Does anybody have any questions before we get into the demo?
Leigh, will you be willing to, or would you consider sharing these slides?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll send you those afterwards, and then feel free to share them however you'd like.
And Leigh, for any of the presentations that you're doing, like the ones on Thursday, do people receive the slides for those as well?
Yeah, I save them as a PDF, and then they're linked. We use GoToWebinar, so they're linked right in the webinar, so people can download them. And we do record all of our classes, so if you can't attend in person, you can always watch it through our YouTube channel. And if you're registered, you do get sent a link.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're pretty open with our resources, as long as they're not copyrighted by somebody else. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm gonna go forward. Before I get into FDO Essential, just some tips before you start, and you're experienced fundraising professionals. So a lot of times some people come into the library and they don't have a clear understanding of what they're trying to fund, which makes the research process very hard. So I like to break it down in terms of 4 questions that match with the search criteria used in FDO Essential or FDO Professional, either one. So you want to think about what you're trying to fund. So what's your subject area? In this case, for environmental protection or conservation. Where are you trying to fund? Are you just trying to fund in a certain county? Are you looking to fund in all of New Jersey? Are you funding over multiple states? So articulating that. These two are, the what and the where, are probably the most important when you're searching in FDO Essential or FDO Professional. And then if you're serving a specific population, you can also input that information, whether it's a specific age group, specific race, economic strata. And then some other things to consider is like, how much money are you looking for? How do you want to receive those grants, and whether they're cash grants, in-kind gifts, matching grants, etc. And then, so that would be the transaction type, the type of grant you're looking for. And then the support strategy. So what are you going to use these grants for? Is it for program support, general operating support? Are you looking to acquire land? Are you doing some renovations? Not every funder, of course, is going to fund all of those things. So just think about that beforehand. Make sure you have some notes. If you have specific foundations that you're looking for, there's a way to search for specific foundations, and I'll show you that. And then you want to pick a time, and this is more towards the day pass system. Pick a time when you're going to get the most out of the pass. So if you want to search over multiple days, start kind of midway through one day, you'll have that afternoon, and then you can search the next day in the morning, for example. And then we do have several tutorial videos for FDO Essential on our website. So I want to show you that next, and then we'll take a look at the database. So let me just switch my screen view. All right. Okay, is everybody looking at the database now? Okay, all right, so I will go back to our website after I'm done the demo, just to make it easier for you to see. So this is the landing page. Notice there's not a banner at the top with the time of my day pass expiration. I'm using a training account, so that's why you're not seeing that. Here you'll see a simple search box where you can enter the what and the where of what you're trying to fund. So for example, let's say I'm trying to fund land conservation in New Jersey. I can just type that in plain English. I don't even need the word in there. And if I hit the search button, what the database does is it matches the terms I've typed in as best as it can to terms used in the database. So I got land resources, land acquisition, program support, and New Jersey. So sometimes, a lot of times, all of these terms are not going to be appropriate for what you're looking for. So you can either hit the X's next to it to get rid of those terms, or what I like to do is open up the advanced searches and filters above that search button and see where those terms fall. And I'm actually going to open up the additional filters too, because if you get anything down here in support strategy and transaction type, so support strategy is like how you're going to use the grants, I take those out because they really, really limit the results that you're going to get. You can always add them back in at the end if you want to narrow your search more, but for the initial things that you're searching for, I take them out. Now we have land resources and New Jersey. Okay, so land resources, if you're not sure what a term means, land resources is pretty self-explanatory, but there is a way to look up the terms used in this database, and that is in the philanthropy classification system, and that's under taxonomy.candid.org. You won't usually have to do this, but I just want to make you aware that it is there for you as a reference. So there is a quick search right here at the bottom, and you can type in some keywords, and you'll get a definition here on the right of what that means in terms of the Foundation Directory Online databases. So preservation and protection of endangered land resources. I'm not going to read that whole thing. But at the bottom, it'll give you some other suggested terms. So if I was looking for forest conservation, I would want to instead use forest preservation, and perhaps. Over here on the side, you can see the taxonomy of the terms. This is also available in the database, and I'll show you that in a second. So under environment, you can see all the terms. Land resources falls under the natural resources. And I just knew that. Of course, if you're doing this the first time, you wouldn't know that. If you wanted to see where that fell in the hierarchy within the database, just start typing in land resources. I just clicked in there, started typing, and I can see that land resources falls under natural resources. So let me search this and see how many results I get for grant makers. It's being a little slow today. All right, so I got 322. If I were to broaden my search to natural resources instead, I should get more results if I wanted more results than 322. And I just wanted to show you that you can broaden your terms just to get more results in that. You can also broaden your geographic focus. You could search the East Coast. You could search the entire United States. So those are options. And if you click in here and start typing, it would bring up suggested search terms for you. Same with population served. Oops, and I lost New Jersey. Okay, so I'm going to search that, and I'm going to leave that as our example for today. Before I go into the results, does anybody have any questions on just searching in there? If you think of something, let me know. These results are broken into two categories in FDO Essential, which is different than FDO Professional. In FDO Essential, which is available remotely, you only have grant makers and 990 tax forms. In FDO Professional, you do see the grant and recipient information. Please ignore the upgrade now. Don't click those buttons. If you need grant and recipient information, I can send this information to you. I do have access to FDO Professional as the database administrator. So say you were looking for the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation for the last 5 years. You want to see what grants they gave. I can download that information and send it to you, either as a PDF or as an Excel file. So I'm going to show you how the Grantmaker profiles today real quick. Initially, you're going to see the top 5 results in each category. For grant makers, they're organized by grant count in the area that you've searched. So these are how many grants they gave in the area that we searched, which is natural resources in New Jersey, over multiple years. Same for amount funded. So these two columns represent multiple years, whereas total assets and total giving represent the information drawn from the last 990 tax form that was submitted to the IRS. This is over all giving, not just in the area that you search. So this represents 1 year, this represents multiple years. That's a common question that I get. And then a new feature here is Candid, if they find RFP announcements, they will post them here. It's kind of hit or miss, but it's a new feature that I just wanted to make you aware of. And then the 990 tax forms, where a lot of the data is pulled, are organized by year. And it's not unusual for there to be a 2-year gap or a 3-year gap, especially now with COVID and the delay of the IRS forms. So let me go into, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I had a question. When you said the amount funded in the grant fund is over multiple years, but do you have, how do we know how many years? Does that mean like since their founding? I don't get that part.
That's a good question. It can go all the way back to 2003 when the database was first opened. It varies though. So without having that grant information, it's hard to tell, unfortunately. If you wanted to see the grant information, of course, I could always send that to you. But that's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, because that just like, it helps to give you a sense of like, what's their typical grant.
Yeah, and sometimes, depending on how the 990 was submitted, sometimes for some reason the IRS doesn't include the attachment with the grant information. Right. So 1 year could be missing out of that. And that's just dependent on how the IRS uploads those 990s and how they can pull them, the data from that.
Yeah,
so
that's great to know. I've always wondered, you're talking, it's like Schedule A or something where you can see all the grants they've made.
I forget the number of the section,
yeah,
but yeah.
I've always wondered why it's sometimes there and sometimes not.
That would be a question that I would like answered too. But yeah, sometimes it's not included, and I've asked Candid and I've asked other databases, like, why isn't this here? I know they gave grants during that year, and it's basically because it wasn't included in that initial scan from the IRS, unfortunately.
May I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I'm probably jumping to another part of your presentation, but I'm fascinated by the fact that it could possibly go back to 2003. So for instance, if I actually put my own organization in here and said who gave to my organization since 2003, because you know, my institutional knowledge goes back 5 years, the EB's goes back 6 years. So it would be very interesting to go back and see, wow, who used to give to us, because maybe they'd still be interested in somebody just dropped the ball.
In FDO Professional, you can do that. Unfortunately, in FDO Essential, the recipient information isn't in there. So you can, in FDO Essential, you can look up a recipient and see the grants, as long as they could pull that information from the 990 or it was directly reported to them. There are some funders that directly send their information to Candid and it shows up much faster, which is nice. They're usually the larger foundations. So yeah, you could do that. And if you were interested in looking at the information from FDO Professional, you can always email me. I'll send you the grants list for that recipient.
Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. So I'm going to take a look at the Grantmaker list. So we're going to view all. And again, these are organized by grant count, which is not always the best way to to evaluate. It depends. You always want to compare the amount funded to the grant count, and I'll give you some examples of that. But up here at the top, there's some additional filters in the My FDO features. Now that you have them, you can mark favorites now. So for the next session that you're in, you can always mark that that's a favorite, and it'll remember this now that you're signed in your own account. You can exclude Grantmaker's not accepting applications. So if I were to do that here, I have 1,113. If I click that box, it usually drops it down to more than half, less than half of what I had. So now I only have 389. All right, so just take that checkbox with caution, because you could be excluding people that you might be able to build a relationship with that might lead to future funding. Just keep that in mind. And then I like to compare the amount funded with the grant count to kind of get an approximate average of the grant that they're going to give in the area that you searched. Of course, that's variable. It could fluctuate depending on the funder. But since we don't have that grant information in Fdocentral, it gives you a better idea of the size of grant that they might give in the area that you're searching. So for example, like the Hidden Pond Foundation here gave 34 grants, but it's less than $20,000 total. So that's about $500 per grant if you average it out. Whereas the Princeton Area Community Foundation gave 32, but it's over $10 million. So they're much higher grant amounts. So you want to keep that in mind. And then here you'll see that indication that there's an RFP opening for Robert Wood Johnson. And again, that's fairly new. So if you wanted to go into one of these funders, I'm going to use this one as an example. I'm just picking it. Actually, you know what? If you hover over it, you can see their top 3 subject areas. And I'm not seeing environment as one of their top 3. So I'm not going to pick that as my first one that I'm going into today. Let's see, what else can I find? Here we go. Let me try this one. So we have the Ctw Foundation. At the top, you're going to see when the profile was updated. If they have a website, it will be linked at the top. This one does not. And then it gives you some links to their contact information in the Who's Who section, which is at the bottom of the profile. At the top, you're going to see a 5-year snapshot of the funder's total giving over all areas, not just what you searched. So you can see where your funding goals fit in with their priorities. So we can see that environment is their second most funded subject area. They fund heavily in New Jersey, which is good. And you can see what the most common grant amount is over the last 5 years. So if you're looking for like $1 million grant, probably not the best funder, but if you're going for something within the mid tens of thousands, might be a good option. Then I like to go all the way down to the application and RFP section, because this gives the giving limitations for the funder. So if you're reading through this whole profile and then you come across this and it excludes your organization, you just wasted your time reading the top of that. So I like to go here first, just so I know I don't meet any of these giving limitations. So this gives primarily in New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, which is good. I'm not trying to fund an endowment, so that looks good for what I'm researching in this example. If I go back up to the top, I get some search terms used in this database to code this funder. I can see what type of organization it is, what they usually support, the subject areas, geographic focus, and population they support as coded by Candid. This is a company sponsored foundation, so I can see the company that is associated with this foundation. And then the about section gives you kind of some background. This doesn't have a lot. Some funders have more than others. If they have a website, they generally have a lot of information, obviously, but it really just depends. So you can see that they fund conservation, which is a good sign for me. And they have one program which it's not related to what I was searching for. FDO will suggest some funders to consider. I don't find this super helpful, but every once in a while you might find another funder that will work with what you're looking for. And then again, we come back to the application and RFP section. I like to note the initial approach, which is a proposal. They will have some information on what they ask for. Again, some funders have more information than others. Then you have your financials. It does link to the 990 tax form. So you can find that grant information if it is included in the 990 tax form, which sometimes it's not, as we mentioned. Within here, this goes all the way back to 2001. So that really just depends on how long the funder has been in existence and how long those PDFs have been on the IRS website. Here you can see information from 2018. You can compare the assets and the total giving that they gave. And then we have the who's who section, which lists the officers, some key staff members, and the donors as well. If they've been in the news or if they have social media, it'll show up here under the communication section. There has been a lot of communication, especially with the COVID relief for a lot of funders. So this is a great place to do some further research in what they've been supporting over the last year or so. And then down here at the bottom, you have your contact information. I always like to note the EIN number, because if you're trying to find a funder that has multiple names or uses a different name than what's on their 990 form, this can be invaluable when you're trying to find their information. So I always like to note that. If you liked this funder and you wanted to save it for later, there's some tools up here at the top. You can email or you can save a PDF of this whole profile. You can email the PDF directly from the database using the envelope. The bullseye is you can remember this as a prospect in your My FDO dashboard, which is a new feature, or you can save it as a favorite. You can set up alerts and you can set tags, but I don't know how valuable those are going to be within the day pass system. So I'm not going to talk too much about those, but the favorites and the prospects will let you remember them for later sessions. So you can just go in right into their profile from your dashboard in a later session. Any questions on the Grantmaker profile before I go out and show you some other ways to download? If you think of anything, I can always come back. So I'm just going to go back to our Grantmaker results, because sometimes you want a list of prospects of foundations. Another difference I didn't note before between Foundation Directory Online Essential and the professional version is that in professional versions, you have company sponsorship programs, you have some federal funding, very high level federal funding, and you have community foundations or public charities. You only have private foundations, full profiles for private foundations in FDO Essential. So keep that in mind. You may be able to see some information on the other types of funders, but you won't see the full profile. So if you wanted to download a list, you have some tools up here at the top. First, you have to check the funders that you want to save over on the side. And again, here you can save a prospect and you can mark it as a favorite. And then you can go up here at the top for the tools. The PDF tool has two options. You can save a list or you can save multiple profiles as one document. I have never been a fan of this because you can't separate the profiles later unless you have a special Adobe software. And the list is only what you see here on your screen. For the list, you can select up to 100 that you see on your screen. It's listed by hundreds. For the multiple profiles in one document, you can only select up to 10 just because the PDF size gets too big. My preferred way of downloading a list of funders is to use the CSV tool here. So you can download a spreadsheet. This includes some additional contact information like address, phone number, email, and website. And then you'll also have a record of what you searched as well. So you can download that as a CSV file, open it up in Excel or some other spreadsheet software. And then this email allows you to download the PDF options, whether it's a list or a multiple profile document. You can't email the CSV file directly from the database, but you can download it and then email it through your browser. Any questions on the downloading options or anything else? Okay, so there's one more thing that I wanted to show you in the database, and say you wanted to search a specific funder, you have a specific funder in mind, you want to see some additional information on them. If you go into the advanced search and filters, under organization name, you can just start typing in, and this is where having the EIN number can be helpful, because under additional filters, there is an option for EIN. You just don't put the dash in. So I always try searching by keyword, and then if I can't, if I'm getting too many results, I use their EIN number if I have it. So say I'm trying to find the Mary, you know what, let's try PSE&G. Corporate. So I have the corporate giving program, and then I have the foundation. Now the corporate giving program, there might not be that information might not be very robust in Fdocentral. So I'm going to go into the foundation. If I click that box with the arrow, it'll automatically open the profile up, and I can see their profile and save that if I need to. Actually, I did not show you how to save a search, so let me do that before I get out of here. All right, land. So I'm just going to use land resources in New Jersey. Sometimes your searches are going to be more complicated than that. You're going to have multiple terms. But if you hit the save button up here at the top, it's purple, has a little folder. You can save that search, and that'll appear in your MyFDO dashboard under Save Searches. And then I have some favorite grant makers that are there. I can put some tags in. Again, I'm not sure how valuable the tags or the alerts are going to be within the DayPass system. I just don't have enough experience with that yet. But feel free to play around with it. So let me get out of this. Does anybody have any other questions about Fdocentral?
Yeah, I do. Is the day pass by person or organization?
It's based on email. So I'm just going to leave it there.
Okay, I just wondered if
it's based
like,
on email. That's how they identify you.
Okay.
So yes, multiple people within your organization could use it separately. So this is our Funding Information Center website. Again, this is where you can request access to Fdocentral. And then below that, I just want to show you there's some tutorial videos. They're under 5 minutes. So if you need a refresher on how to search in Fdocentral or save things, I haven't updated the searching or the grant makers to reflect that MyFDO feature that's now available, but the accessing is up to date. That's with the new DayPass system. And then we do provide recordings to our classes that we have. This is our old one. The new one's going to come up after Thursday when I teach it. And then we have links to our research guides. So I'm going to show you the grant information and the nonprofit research guide today. So let me get into that. So these are all of the research guides that we have at the State Library. There are a lot of them. They're in alphabetical order. The ones that I wanted to point out today are our grant information one and our nonprofit management. So within grant information, we have some COVID-related resources, information on proposal writing. That's more for beginner proposal writers, links for federal funding. We do link to the agencies as well as grants.gov and the support materials that grants.gov has on their website. I do link to the state agencies, most of them, not all of them, but most of them directly to their grants page because they're all a little bit different in how they administer their grants. And then we have information on private grants related to our databases that we have, as well as some additional websites. And then we have a page for libraries too. Oh, I have some in chat. Okay. All right, so, and then we have our nonprofit management research guide that has information for starting a nonprofit, general fundraising materials, and just basic research for the nonprofit sector, information related to employment and volunteering. And then we do link to the associations for fundraising professionals and for nonprofits, both statewide, nationally, and internationally. So it's just kind of a nice place to get all that information all in one spot. Let me go back to my PowerPoint because I'm pretty much almost done. Okay, so I just wanted to point out those tips again. During the session, you want to make sure you download those Grantmaker profiles, and then you can save those searches in the Grantmakers for later sessions. Showed you those two things. So I do have the links for those research guides in the slides that I'll send Lauren. Again, you can get those 990 tax forms if you really want to dig into the tax forms because they're super fun to read. Outside of the database, I'm sure you're aware of this. Candid has a finder, ProPublica has a similar 990 finder. You can get them in GuideStar, you do have to register with them. And then Grantmakers IO pulls information from electronically submitted 990 PDFs and then it makes it a little bit easier to read. But again, it's limited to the ones that are electronically submitted, which hopefully in the future there will be more now with that new law. But it is limited as of right now to those 990 PDFs that are electronically submitted. And then just some RFP alerts that you can sign up for. I like Philanthropy News Digest. Grants Station Insider has a newsletter that's free. And the Center for Nonprofit is great with posting funding opportunities as well. So I'm just going to leave my information there. I'll put that in the chat as well. If you have any questions, please let me know. I encourage you to reach out to your local Fin location. Also, we are on Twitter. The Funding Information Center is on Twitter at NJSL Funding Info. Please follow us. We do post, or I should say I post RFPs, professional developments that are free, news for nonprofits in New Jersey, all different types of stuff. And then I will post that website in the chat as well if you want to go into our Funding Information Center webpage. So let me stop sharing. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any yet, but I'm sure I will once I start digging into this. Because it looks so easy when you're doing it, but I have done this, I've tried once before, and I'm just a bundle of questions while I'm trying to actually do it.
Yeah, if you ever need like one-on-one help, let me know. It's a little bit more complicated now with the day pass system, but I think we could probably figure out something. I do have that training account that I can show you if you have specific questions. So feel free to email me if you need any one-on-one help with that. I'm going to put my email in the chat and as well as our funding information. Does anybody else have any questions? Also, have you had any questions related to funding or just what's out there in terms of what you're trying to fund in your community? I'm always looking for perspectives within the nonprofit community. As a librarian, I'm kind of like on the tangent, on the adjacent side there.
I would like to find a grant that would fund an intern that would learn everything from you and do my work.
I don't know if I could teach them everything.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I do have one, Leigh.
Sorry,
Oh,
go ahead, Lauren.
We're working, as many people are, with other different focus areas, and one is the arts, and possibly putting on a a play or some kind of arts type of production, and that would help the environment. So the theme would be the environment. The outcome would be the play. So that joint relationship. And there's a few other examples like that. I'm sure many of us would love to have, I'm sure we'd all love to have art around different communities, whether that's, my apologies, I've gone blank, painting on buildings, those kinds of things to bring awareness. So, reaching out to other organizations that provide this expertise, this wonderful talent, which we don't have. We have the message, we don't have the talents to do that. Looking for those kinds of grants. So as we realize, not everybody, and as we know, nonprofits shouldn't do everything pro bono, and we need to give money to these arts organizations to do that.
I have a suggestion for you, Lauren.
Sure.
Am I going over somebody? I happen to be a member of the Dramatists Guild, and this particular issue this month is exclusively about the environment.
Woo-hoo!
So if you go to the Dramatists Guild, you will be able to access it online, I believe. I don't think that they will make you have to become a member or anything, but it's wonderful.
Thank you. I'm sure, Karen, you're familiar with this. This is like jumps in both of your worlds here. Karen Hollywood, by the way.
Oh, she had to leave.
Yeah.
I guess if I could just jump in with kind of a general question, not necessarily specific to the library, but one of the things that I'm kind of being challenged with right now, historically, the Park Alliance has had a project that we want to fund, and we look for funders for that project. So for example, right now we're trying to do outside exercise equipment. And I have a bunch of folks, I just started 3 grants this morning for something else, which is exhibits at our environmental center. But I have a board member at the last board meeting who said, instead of doing these individual project things, let's just do a 3-year, $500,000 appeal. And I thought, oh, okay, I don't know that I can do both. It's just me. And I kind of reached out to Hans Decker at Community Foundation, because they happen to rent space in one of the Park Commission's buildings. So I always call Hans. And I said, what do you think, as knowing who we are and what we do, what do you think about this proposal? And he actually said, oh, I think you can have your cake and eat it too. I think you can do both. And I guess my challenge is looking at some of these grants and seeing that, they want a final report in 9 months. They want a final report in a year. So how do I juggle? Oh, no, you can't have your final report for 3 years because we're doing this $500,000 3-year challenge. And I guess I just kind of put that out for anybody's comments or suggestions or thoughts. I'm a little, I don't want to say frustrated, but I just can't wrap my arms around it right now.
Unless you can break your program up into 3 different segments, maybe. So if you were looking for a grant to handle a portion of it, and then the next portion would be either funded by a different grant, or maybe by then it would be partially funded by this larger campaign.
Yeah. Kind of challenging.
Yeah, I have a grant that I would like to find. It's going to support an archaeologist who would do a LiDAR survey of a preserve where we believe there may be a burial ground. And there are woods around where we think the burial ground might be. And so I certainly don't want to send in volunteers if my historian is correct. And he has done research already on the property. And he would just like to pay to have a LiDAR I guess I think it's a plane of some kind. Anyway, it's like a ground sensing radar that tells whether the ground has been disturbed. And so it's a historic project, and it has a conservation aspect, but really it's more just about preserving that historic burial ground. And so I need to find funding for this. It's going to cost about $8,000. And I don't know where to look besides looking at a Mercer County CHIP grant. I don't know who might fund a similar kind of project. And I'm not sure a CHIP grant would even fund to the tune of $8,000 for a LiDAR survey. So I wonder where I might go about looking for funds to
Lori,
support
what's the burial ground? What's the, who was buried there?
So just between us.
Well, okay, sorry.
It could be the St. Michael's Orphanage in Hopewell Borough was run by the Diocese of New Jersey, and it was older, like Victorian era, and there may be a burial ground for, I guess, clients who had passed away while they were living at the orphanage.
I was just thinking maybe another keyword search would be culture, just based on the culture at that time, or besides history, archaeology, culture, etc. I think that might be a search word as well.
Yeah, and once we find this grantor, we could do subsequent grants looking for African-American burial grounds throughout the Sauerlands, because we suspect that there are some either on public land, and some there are rumors and people talk about how they think there is one here, that we think there could be one there. It would make sense if there was one here, but without putting a shovel in the ground, just trying to find out if the ground had been disturbed. So, I mean, once I find who this grantor is, who is interested in preserving cemeteries, I could keep them busy for a while.
There is a specific search term for cemetery preservation in Fdocentral. It's kind of restrictive, and I believe it's under history. Just see real quick. Because we do get questions from cemeteries on helping to preserve the graves and whatnot. Let me see.
We think that the Stoutsburg the Stoutsburg Cemetery was actually larger than the amount of property that's currently being cared for. We think that the graves may extend into the woods. It was just it was really a mess, and some people came in and cleaned it up, and now there's a portion of it that's really quite beautiful, and then the rest of it is still just very rough woods. And I think, according to tradition, folklore, maybe, the graves extend into the woods. And again, we could find this out with LiDAR, and that could be African-American history. Maybe it falls under another category. I'm not sure.
You might be able to look at the Grassman, E.J. Grassman Trust, or the Hyde and Watson grants, because they often give it for technical equipment. So
that's not capital, though. It doesn't fall under the guidelines, unfortunately, Lyle, for Hyde and Watson, Grassman, or Union Foundation. So it wouldn't meet the criteria and what we're talking about.
It's not technical expertise, like computers, etc.
That's a bootstrap kind of that's under general operating or project support. It's not under capital. Unless she was saying, hey, can you, and maybe this is something you're looking for, we'd like Lori, the equipment to do this project, to go and look for, like if you wanted the plane, or something like that.
So we were going to we actually have been in contact with someone who does this. And so that money is included in that $8,000 that I was saying, but they're a specialty LiDAR company, and so they would come out and do the LiDAR of that specific area that we have mapped out for them in advance.
Like you're asking for salary, really, That's right.
It's really, it's an
consultant fee.
archaeologist who put the proposal together, who we've worked with a lot, and he donates very much of his time, but it's actually the company who does the LiDAR itself, who's the bulk of the bill on this one. So they charge quite a bit to come out and do that work. And so that's where the majority of that $8,000 budget is buried, if you will. It's tricky, right? We want to know.
It's always tricky when you're asking for salary or consultant fees. That has always been we all feel this, right? So what do? You look at your development plan and you say, okay, major donors, $8,000, I'll go and chat, and there's a variety of different techniques to do that. But yeah, and I don't know how much Leigh's had this kind of conversation with people, but sometimes, it is a multitude of ways to go about raising funds. As Denise had mentioned, do I do this? Do I do that? And you find I have to do something comprehensive. I have to do it all at once, or I have to figure out what's
Piece it together.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have those kind of conversations, Leigh, or you're just providing, hey, here's the data. Enjoy. Good luck.
Usually people will email me, they're looking, usually they think they need grants for this. That's kind of like where they go to the first, they haven't really considered the other fundraising that they could do, asking their individual donors and whatnot. So we'll get that email, and then I'll give them kind of a way to search within the resources that we have, or show them some foundations that might be good to look at further. We can't do too much in-depth research, just time-wise at the library, but we kind of point them in the right direction, and then provide some additional suggestions to kind of go forward. So if you wanted to send me an email on any projects that you're working, I'd be more than willing to see what I can find using the resources that we have. I'm not a fundraising professional. I'm just a librarian. I do belong to some nonprofits, so and I've applied for grants as a librarian and as a teacher. So I understand the challenges, maybe not at the level that you're working at, but it's hard, especially when you're looking for resources like you are, Lori. But I've seen some foundations, I can't think of it off the top of my head, that do support historical preservation as well as conservation. So you might be able to find something where those two interests meet.
Leigh, are there any resources in Lori's case, and this might apply to a lot of other people here, for like historic or cultural preservation? Is there anything in the library that someone could look at that might be a great resource that kind of would help out in these efforts that we hadn't thought about besides FDO?
A lot of that is going to come through the historic commissions, unfortunately, through the state, through the county level. There are some foundations that do support it, but there's not. I've had historic societies who are trying to renovate buildings contact me, and they get those grants through the state, they get the grants through their county level, but then they reach out to their donors and try to kind of fill in the costs that they have. And I volunteer at a local historic society in Pennsylvania where I live, and it's very similar. We did some conservation on a lot of textiles that we had, and it was just reaching out to our individual donors that we knew had an interest in that, through the connections of our members. So there are some, but it's a lot coming through government grants.
And to
Lori, do you know the New Jersey Historic Trust? Have you applied for funding to them before?
I have not applied to them for this, but because I have been really busy just trying to plant a lot of trees. So all my focus has just been going into the ash decline, which is just outrageous. So I'm working very hard on that. So I was kind of hoping that I was going to be able to put the archaeologist that I'm working with has a friend who's interested in learning about writing grants and getting involved in grant writing. He's retired and this is what he wants to do in his retirement. So I was kind of hoping that I could just give them a little bit of a nudge and just set them off on their own to do this, so I can still focus on just planting a whole load of trees, because we're really losing a lot. And I did not want to spend a lot of my or my staff's time on this particular topic, just because I mean, it could wait, and the trees cannot wait. But we can't work in that forest that I'm talking about, because there could be a cemetery there. So I mean, it could come around to that eventually. Yeah. So
Is there a heritage commission in Somerset County or Mercer? Wherever?
So yeah, this is located in Mercer, and yes, there is one. So it could be done.
Yeah, because our heritage commission does provide small grants here in Mars.
Yeah. So I would need to get a match or something, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and we just submitted a humanities council grant as well. So like Leigh was saying, it's unfortunately like a SAGE application at the New Jersey level.
Which color sage?
Yes.
There's two different colors.
Blue. But yeah, even if it's like a couple of small grants through, or if there are local historic societies who might even give like $500 or something like that, you might just end up cobbling together small donations from various places. Because it sounds like a neat thing. I watch crime shows on TV and I know what they do with that LiDAR stuff.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it's very cool.
I know. Yeah, I'll be very interested to see what the results are.
Denise's
But first we have to
question
get the grants.
about Leigh, do you have any resources potentially for funding projects over a long period of time? Meaning, is there anything you've seen in other, whether it's FDO or other areas that you've guided people towards that might be helpful that the library offers?
Towards like sustainability for longer projects.
Yeah, I think we have to avoid calling it like an endowment or anything like that, because that's really a challenge. So, I belong to a nonprofit who just embarked on what they thought was going to be a 3-year mass funding thing. I think it was $100,000, and they made their money in a year and a half. But they had some very generous individuals who kind of started it off, and then it just went from there. I don't know. I mean, I think part of my hesitation here is also our lack of connections in the community and things like that, marketing, etc.
So building those connections first, maybe.
Yep, and we're working on that right now. We actually have a contract with a marketing firm who's helping us with brand strategy.
Yeah, there's a ton of like trainings and stuff. I mean, we've been inundated this past year on trainings on marketing, but a lot of them are free, which is really nice. So that's a great resource. And we do have some materials at the library for those.
Yeah, I'm going to check out your website. And
okay, great.
Yeah. And I knew about all the candid stuff, but yeah, I think like everyone else, I need to go in and just kind of play around a little bit.
Yeah, and if you need some more one-on-one help, or if you need me to do some searching, let me know.
Thanks.
Yep.
Everyone leaving, so I'm going to stop.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Leigh. This has been a wealth of information. Super appreciate it. And whenever you'd like to provide the slides, I will then send it out to the group.
Yeah, I'll send this to you right now after I log off.
Thank you, Leigh.
All right, thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.